Hey guys, welcome back to week 15 of the Axial Deadbolt budget build. This week we're talking about tire foam. Tire foams are something that's often overlooked, especially with people who are newer to the hobby. A lot of people buy a set of tires, throw those tires on, and they're completely happy with whatever came inside of there. But usually there's performance left over for those tires that you purchase that you can really help bring out of them with a proper set of foams. Now, some people also try and remove the foams completely and just try and trap the air inside of the wheel. Not a good setup. A properly tuned foam setup is going to outperform that. And you just have to properly pick the foam that is best for your situation to make sure that you get what is going to work the best for you in any situation that you plan to run in. Now, as I've said before, this truck I've got a pretty specific purpose for. I'm going for that all-out rock crawling performance specifically because I do plan to compete with this truck. So for my truck, I'm going with a set of the Little Nova 1.9 two-stage foams. But there are other options when you're looking at different types of terrain or uses for your truck, such as a single stage closed cell foam, which is much better for something that you're looking for a more all-around use for. Let's pull up in these two packages and kind of get inside and show you what they do and show you why which one may work best for you depending on your situation. So here we've got our two different types of setups. Again, a two-stage and a single stage. Both of them have that consistent closed cell inner foam. Now, I'm going to go with the two-stage for my rig for a couple of reasons. Again, all-out rock crawling performance is what I'm going for. This foam is very tunable. This set, I got a soft outer for the fronts and then a medium outer for the rears. That slightly stiffer rear setup will help keep the truck more supported when it's sitting up with the rear down and the front up in the air. This will keep it to get me the maximum amount of reach when I'm going towards ledges or anything like that. That soft outer foam on the fronts will allow those tires to conform to rocks and grab the best that they possibly can, trying to get the most performance on the rocks out of those Rock Beast 1.9s that we put on this truck earlier. Now, that closed cell inner, that's there for a reason. Now, that closed cell will keep the center of that tire nice and supported instead of having that tire roll way underneath of that beadlock in the case that you're side hilling and trying to turn uphill perhaps. That's when oftentimes you'll see that entire tire kind of rolled underneath of itself. And then you're pretty much just riding on the sidewall, not where your best traction is happening. This will help you keep that tread contacted down on the rocks instead of that sidewall. Again, giving you the most performance that you can get out of those tires that you put on your rig. Now, in situations where I plan to trail more than just completely rock crawl, that's when I prefer to go with something like the Deuce's Wild 1.9 closed cell foams. These foams are very simple. They have some distinct advantages over a two-stage foam for me when I'm out doing pretty nasty trail riding, especially when you hit something like water. The closed cell foam is waterproof. So when you've got your tires vented and you get some water in there, not a big deal. Kind of just get it out of there the best you can, and these foams are still going to hold up really well. That's important because a vented tire is going to perform better, especially when you're trying to get that tire to conform properly when you're on some rugged terrain. Now, again, that sidewall is going to be nice and supported with a full height closed cell foam. This means if you're doing any sort of high speed maneuvering at all, that tire is going to always be stood straight up. These do give you a nice consistent feel. Now, we don't have that soft outer on these foams like we did on the two-stage that I plan to use on my car. But what Crawler Innovations has done here is they've milled these grooves around the outside. The high point of these grooves supports that outer part of the tire so that it keeps its height and doesn't give you too much squish. But you still want the tire to conform, and that's what the grooves and the valleys of these things are for. That is allowed to conform because there's not a full amount of that closed cell foam there supporting that outer edge of that tire. Little things like that is what makes these foams a real winner, especially if you've got just an all-around trail rig. These are definitely the type of foam that I choose to go with typically in that type of situation. With all of that said, these are the ones that I'm choosing today, and these are what I'm going to put inside of those wheels and tires that I've got on there now. So I'm not going to go through a big step-by-step of how exactly we put tire foams into tires. I think you guys can figure that out after we've already changed the tires on these rigs or on this rig before. So with that said, I'm going to tear this thing apart, get these installed, and then we'll do a little wrap up here at the end, letting you guys know just a few more details that you may be looking for. So the install of those little Nova Crawler Innovations foams was pretty simple. Actually, a lot easier than mounting up the stock foams inside of these tires. If you've ever owned a set of Rock Beasts, you'll know that they'll come with a two-stage foam like this, but unlike the Crawler Innovations, they don't have a closed cell inner. They just have a firmer inner to try and replicate the similar type of properties that that foam has. However, that inner foam on these will fight you quite a bit when you're trying to mount them up to a set of bead locks. They're just wider than the wheel normally is, so it tries to get out there. You got to try and keep it in spots. It's just a pain. These things mounted up super easy. Something else to mention about the Crawler Innovations foams over those stock two-stage foams is that the Crawler Innovation foams really helped stand up these Pitbull tires, give you just a little bit more functional height out of them. Something else to mention now is you have to remember that we did do the softs in the front and the mediums in the rear. Now those foams definitely do have a difference in the firmness of them. But it is a little bit hard to tell when you're just squeezing between them trying to figure out which is which. So take a little bit of advice here and mark the inside of your wheel with some sort of marking that will make sure that you can recognize which ones go on the front and which ones go on the rear. Because if you're like me and you're trying to keep the weight forward in the car without adding weight to the wheels, you're going to have just kind of a hard time trying to figure out which ones are which. I used a paint pen, and in the rear, I put two little dots on the inside just to make sure that I know which ones go where. But just something that'll help you keep your rig performing consistently all the time in the case that you take them off, wash your tires or something like that, and then you can't remember which are which. That's going to do it for the foam discussion for this week. I know tire foams may not seem like the most exciting upgrade you could possibly do, but they're worth every penny. And dollar for dollar, the performance gains you're going to get are going to be pretty hard to match. Now, while you're at Crawler Innovations, maybe if you want to help protect your investment on those foams a little bit, pick up these little cell blocks. Now, I will say Eddie did send me 2 of these, so he gave them to me. But these are just the most handy little crawler stands I've used. I love these things. I've had regular Lexan style stands that you paint. They've got the rubber on top and all those different things. For some reason, I never found them as useful as these more flexible foam ones. Now, our rigs often have the skid plate in the center with the links, and sometimes those more rigid stands, those links don't like to sit on there and your truck ends up kind of teetering and things like that. For some reason, I've just really enjoyed using these cell block stands. So a little plug for Eddie. I appreciate him throwing them to me, but I think you guys would actually like them as well. So check them out, see what you think, and I don't think you'll be disappointed with them at all. But enough with the plugs, and that's enough for this week. So with that said, we'll see you guys on the next one.